So this kinda circulated in the wake of the Mario movie success, the topic of a Super Smash Bros. Movie, a Smash on Nintendo's cinematic crossover universe. Heck, even back since the first trailer for the Mario movie, this was already kind of an idea some already had, which... The title already kind of gives away what my stance is, but I won't lie in saying this wasn't an immediate thought process or conclusion I reached on my end. It's nice to get to make a Smash video again after a long time, but... Now, okay, I love Smash Brothers. Had it not been my exposure to Mario and Pokemon back in the early 2000s, I would not have picked up Smash. If Mario wasn't my favorite gaming franchise ever, it'd probably be Super Smash Bros. And even then, both are my favorites by really thin hairs. I still play it a lot to this day, competitively with Ultimate, and I have a slew of past content showing this easy. But over the wake of the Mario movie, the recent Sonic and Detective Pikachu movies as well, doing well, the Smash Cinematic Universe is all coming together. Some mock-up images and pictures and memes and such of a Smash Cinematic Universe, an SCU or NCU or whatever. Thankfully, I'm not alone. I am not the first person to say, I don't know about a Smash Brothers movie, but I've wanted to throw my hat in the ring for a while since the Mario movie came out. There are a lot of series, a lot of franchises, and pieces of media out there that can and should be adapted to movies. Books, novels, TV shows, video games. Once again, the Sonic and Mario movies are good examples. But not only is not every single piece of media out there compatible for a film adaptation, I don't think Smash is one of those series. This is a whole thing, but the pictures, memes, and mock-ups are cool. They're fun little images and whataboutisms that are harmless in the grand scheme. It's a fun what-if scenario in an alternate reality that would be very fun and cool if pulled off very well. The people making these images and the images themselves, they're fine and harmless. It's just the idea and what if is being taken seriously by some. I don't know exactly how much, but I know this is a hypothetical that existed since 2008 for sure, and there are a good number of people actually wanting a Smash movie or Nintendo's shared cinematic universe. But the craze and idea of the shared universe is 100% a byproduct of just all these other companies and franchises having a shared universe. DC, Marvel, Avengers, Justice League, other companies. It's just been a running trend for more than a decade at this point, and a lot of people feel Nintendo should capitalize on that with a Smash movie of some sort, coupled with Smash Bros.' obvious insane success, popularity, and notoriety amongst gamers and nerds everywhere, far beyond Nintendo fans especially. On top of Smash itself being a crossover series, it being one of the biggest crossovers and celebrations in gaming, so why not make a Smash Bros. Movie? Again, it's a whole thing, so I'll take it one step at a time. The Mario movie's mass success broke the ice and confirmed on Nintendo's end more movies of their IPs, which is awesome. The Mario sweep giving us more Mario movies, a potential Zelda movie, Metroid, Donkey Kong, Star Fox, etc. is awesome, and we could use more movies and TV series of Nintendo's beloved and charming IPs. Nintendo even has their own branch for visual content called Nintendo Pictures for more animated and cinematic projects. It's not just the collaboration with Illumination giving us Nintendo animated content, nor is Illumination the only film company under the Universal brand Nintendo could work with. But Smash itself is one of those series I fully feel wouldn't suffice for a film or shared universe for cinema. Smash and the characters in and outside the game, playable, assist trophy, deconfirmed, etc. People call a pipe dream is one thing. I think a Smash movie is one of those things to where that's a dreamier dream than anything within the confines of Smash's concepts and character discussion. Like a Smash movie or Nintendo shared universe is a bigger pipe dream, a pipe dream within a pipe dream, than any pipe dream Smash did or didn't make a reality. For one thing, it's already wildly too soon to unironically feel like they should be planning a Smash phase or shared universe across all of their brands when you have clashing visual styles and worlds of the cartoony, CGI Mario movie meshing with the live-action, significantly more realistic-looking Sonic and Pokemon. That would throw people off much harder than it ever did in Smash. Forget the slew of other series and brands with wild styles and visuals different from one another like Star Fox, Fire Emblem, Xenoblade, Game & Watch, Minecraft, etc. Animation and CGI already having this significant difference between each other in cinema, that would face more blowback than it ever did with Smash, alongside the stark different tones and writing styles all these series have, or even just between Mario, Sonic, and Detective Pikachu. But I'll humor the idea for a little bit. Let's assume we would ever get a Smash movie ever. That is going to take a remarkable amount of time. Something like the MCU, all three phases, all the Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and other movies and crossover movies under Marvel, that they all share the same universe. They planned all of that in advance before going through with them all, and it still took basically a decade and a half to fully realize and complete, especially in some competent manner, and that's basically the only shared universe that genuinely works. For something like Smash or even half of Nintendo's big IPs sharing a conjoined universe or multiverse, that would literally take double that amount of time at best. 20 to 30, hell maybe even 40 years from now, personally is when I can even wrap my head around the idea of some kind of Smash movie happening. Shared universes, especially coherent, competent ones, and especially in film, are ones that take an unbelievable amount of time and planning. It's a form of entertainment that thrives off of storytelling, narrative, character writing, development, and world building, all of which being stuff Smash almost never tackles or does in its own games. And even then, Smash itself was never a shared universe. It was always a crossover series. Ignoring Smash is also non-canon to the franchises it houses. Crossover series and shared universes aren't the same thing. The sheer concept of Smash itself is a kid playing with toys and figurines and using their imagination to have these characters fight each other. That's always been Smash's entire concept since 64. And while you have the Lego Movie adapting a concept like that incredibly well in the Lego Movie, that's also the appeal and entire point behind Legos, building and using your imagination to create whatever you desire. Smash's entire appeal has always been the characters and crossover element above all else. The gameplay is another big one, but all these franchises coming together in this fighting game, the massive roster and possible combinations for who could fight whom, what other Nintendo and non-Nintendo characters could square off in a fun and captivating way. That was always Smash's appeal and main attraction. The clashing styles, genres, and series, despite their differences, is something they can get away with because once again, it's a crossover series. So the crossover part is the point, but it's also a video game series that Smash's own gameplay and genre of fighting games is something most of the franchises in it don't also do either. The gaminess of Smash is why the clashing styles and wildly tonally different series from Mario and Kirby to Castlevania, Bayonetta, and Xenoblade works, because that's the point and appeal of Smash, and it has that liberty as a video game, not as a movie. It's a crossover franchise that was never a shared universe, let alone Smash is also non-canon to all the series it houses. Almost never did Smash ever focus on story, character writing, etc. I know the thing, I'll talk about it in a bit, I'll get to it, but wait. Stuff like Mario, Star Fox, Pokemon, and such, the IPs that have a simple story can still be molded and expanded into something more than the plots they provide in their games. Hell, people question whether or not the Mario movie could work with the usual plot it has, and it's not only we have multiple main Mario games like Sunshine, Galaxy, or Odyssey, and the RPGs like Mario and Luigi, Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario, Mario plus Rabbids, etc., to where we have several Mario games that focus more on story, but the Mario movie did prove it managed to make a Mario movie work with some extra liberties and altercations here and there to that same tried and true Mario premise, alongside adding extra character bits across all the main characters. Smash's premise and story, whether the toy and figurine imagination aspect of it all, or the franchises themselves sharing their universes into one unironically, would not be as malleable than if they just played each franchise and universe as their own thing. And if they were to go the Lego Movie route with the toys, I definitely feel the message and theme would basically be a botched version of what the Lego Movie did, or Toy Story, since that's also comparable. And as far as the latter, giving these characters motivations, a proper plot surrounding all of them, a reason to coexist, once again, that would just take a stupid amount of time to pull off even marginally effectively, not even halfway effectively, and would be a massive order to make more than 8 to 10 characters in a single movie get a proper amount of depth and screen time. That number growing if they went with Smash's larger rosters. It's both unrealistic and a lot more complex than people expect. Another thing some should consider is the Mario movie literally just got its feet off the ground in cementing a cinematic universe within itself, and it legit only scratched the surface of establishing the rest of the Mario world in movie form. Not to mention it took Nintendo this long to even make a proper Mario film in the first place. If we're gonna give a genuine attempt to consider a Smash movie, can we at least let Mario's shared universe blossom first? Like, some of y'all gotta slow the down, bro. I'm not saying Marvel Cinematic Universe when I say this, but the only MCU Nintendo should care about is the Mario Cinematic Universe. The Mario universe, all on its own, is literally already a shared universe. Mario shares its world and canon with Donkey Kong Country, Yoshi's Island, and WarioWare/Wario Land. All on its own, Mario also has yet to establish Yoshi, Daisy, Wario, Waluigi, Rosalina, games around Super Mario World, Luigi's Mansion, Mario Galaxy. Like, they still need time to establish the rest of the Mario universe before we could even talk about a Smash Bros. Type of canon or scenario. Matter of fact, can we at least see Nintendo establish and flesh out Zelda, Metroid, Kirby, Star Fox, and other franchises out into good standalone movies first before we talk about a Smash movie? Smash's entire naming convention and one of their poster child franchises is Mario, I get that, but there's a lot more to Smash than just Mario, Sonic, and Pokemon, bro. We need Nintendo Pictures or Nintendo to collaborate with other studios to produce other content on their other franchises and Smash that millions also really like first. DreamWorks is another studio under Universal, and we all know they would excel at either a Zelda or Metroid movie. Either of those franchises could have a live action movie or make do with an animated one. Kirby could be animated by them or other studios. Like, Illumination's not Nintendo's only animation dealer in this entire market when they have collaborated with other studios for smaller projects before. When Nintendo's making their own branch for that as well, and when Illumination's not the only Universal movie studio Nintendo can make a connection to. Illumination's proven they can pull off Mario's cinematic content, but I don't know why people are assuming they're the only option for their other brands and IPs that differ wildly in visual style, tone, and narrative composition. They're not, and we know they probably shouldn't touch Metroid, Xenoblade, Zelda, and whatnot. And Nintendo can and should give the other franchises to more compatible studios that can deliver on the more serious, fantasy, down-to-earth, sci-fi horror, anime, etc.-esque styles and tones their other series have. But we need to see Mario and Nintendo's other first parties to flesh out into cinematic properties before Smash gets one. That's how the franchise even got conceptualized in the first place, because after a decade and a half from the NES, they had those franchises to work with into that series. Right now, they only have Mario and hardly much for Pokemon if you really think about it. That's not even factoring all the third-party franchises Smash has, to where most of those don't even have cinematic universes. Forget wildly different visual styles and narrative tones once again, alongside all of them being owned by different companies and the layers of third-party ownerships and what they can and can't do. All the third-party shenanigans Sakurai and Nintendo had to go through the first time around would basically be brought back all over again from square one. How accurately they want to portray those characters on top of how accurate are the Nintendo ones, giving even a quarter of the roster enough motivations and character depth. Not the whole roster, not even half, not even a third, but even just a quarter of them. The story, motivation, and writing needed to even have some level of effectiveness and adequate execution. Like, there's so many layers and factors to even think about with a Smash Bros. Movie in the movie industry that, yeah, the game components are largely out of the equation, but the story, narrative, brand acquisition, and accurate depiction of these characters and worlds, as well as the proper fusion of them all, are 10 times more crucial and difficult to combine than they ever have been in the Smash series. That I think you could argue it'd be a much bigger hassle to do this than how big of a hassle Smash is already. And all of that's even assuming a Smash Cinematic Universe is even on Nintendo or Sakurai's radar at all. On Nintendo's radar, I don't doubt they might consider the possibility. Why wouldn't they, obviously? But they just got Mario out there, and it's recently breaking the records it has after only being out for a month. We gotta slow down with asking or wanting a Smash movie when they didn't even get through half of the original 8 franchises. And on Sakurai's end, the man's been repping his YouTube channel for a good while lately, none of us knowing if he's got any other projects outside of that, or it's just him working on his YouTube content. But Smash Bros. At this moment in time is Sakurai's franchise too. Sakurai for the longest time, and for most people, is Smash Brothers, and I highly doubt he even cares about adapting Smash into a film at this moment. Nintendo and Sakurai during Ultimate's development struggled to even direct the game without Sakurai's influence, so even now Nintendo's finding it hard to make anything Smash related without Sakurai's direction. I don't doubt Nintendo and Sakurai may want to try and have someone else direct and lead Smash as a franchise in the distant future, because for as popular and celebrated Smash continues to grow and become, Nintendo's gonna have to prepare for that. It's both inevitable and something that already took place with Kirby. But Mario as a collective brand and multi-series franchise is manned by multiple studios in and outside Nintendo to where Miyamoto sees minimal influence or direct control over, something he did with the Mario movie and had the time and desire for. Sakurai very, very likely doesn't have that same circumstance, and I highly doubt we'll see it from him or Nintendo or a different director slash helmsman for the franchise for a really long while. And a lot of the hype or need, quote unquote, for people feeling they have to have a Smash movie or Nintendo Cinematic Universe is almost completely based on both the shared universe crossover hype Marvel wrote off for a while, and the crossover hype Smash has rode off of over the years since Brawl, peaking with Ultimate, Sephiroth, and Sora. Just the concept of a shared universe of Nintendo's IPs being established for film is being asked for more than whether or not a shared universe could work, and Marvel and other studios maintaining this vice grip on cinema's audiences to coaxing out the need for a shared universe out of everything when we don't. And Smash Bros. Has worked marvelously as a crossover series since the beginning, but it never did as a shared universe, nor did it even try to work as one, and there's a disparity between the two. But then there's the elephant in the room, the thing I said I'll get to, Subspace Emissary, which I love Subspace Emissary for multiple reasons, but let's be real, Subspace's narrative is as coherent and well constructed as a broken vase pieced together by duct tape. The character interactions are cool and hype, but almost no dialogue is spoken by anyone, hardly anyone has palpable motivations or reasons for doing what they do beyond just for the sake of it, good or evil. Only 2 characters in that entire mode get any character development or growth, Rob and Lucas, the latter not even accurate to his character depiction from Mother 3. The world itself and vast sum of enemies are basically a pocket dimension completely original and separate from the franchises in Smash, and the vast majority of the story and narrative surrounding it would not sustain a theatrical movie for the public to see in theaters whatsoever. Subspace was meant as a single-player campaign, providing a cinematic experience, which even then Sakurai backed off of recapturing that vision and magic Subspace had in later games because the cutscenes got leaked online prior to release, missing the point and appeal of the mode in his eyes. So not only does that support why that wouldn't happen for a legitimate movie if Sakurai was behind it, assuming that philosophy is still maintained to this day and in the future, because movies like these are leaked, teased, and tossed online so fast all the time, but Subspace Emissary's setups, scenarios, character interactions, cutscenes, and story, they work because it knows it's not meant as a serious, legitimate movie you would see in a theater. It had the benefit of being detached almost entirely from the franchises it featured and tossed them into its own makeshift world and narrative. It's a what-if story scenario trying to make Smash feel as cinematic as it possibly could back in 2008, without the stresses or need of making the characters, the world, and overall story make as much coherent sense and narrative weight as most normal movies. It's why people adore the cutscenes, character interactions, and overall mode. It's junk food type of content that works because Smash fans both love it and understand it's simple and nonsensical because it doesn't have to be the opposite. It's why people relive the mode via cutscenes online, because that's the reward, and the stupidness of Captain Falcon teaming up with Olimar, or Meta Knight chasing down the Halberd or Ancient Minister with Marth and Ike, or the game's Diet Avenger squad of Mario, Link, Pit, Kirby, and Yoshi a quarter of the time, is fun, entertaining, and hype schlock, and it's all within a mode that is the bulk of Brawl's identity, but it's a mode that's also not the core appeal and purpose for what Smash is. Just a zany, wild crossover series that challenged how far it could go with each game. Subspace is cool, stupid fun for Smash and Nintendo fans, but it's not going to be the same for general audiences and the wide sum of moviegoers of numerous kinds of ages. That's why the idea of adapting Smash as it is now is way too far out of the realm of possibility. Because let's be 100% honest, when people say, I want a Smash movie or Nintendo Cinematic Universe, they want a Smash movie with all the characters Smash has now. All 89 of them, to where people want a movie of all these characters interacting together and fighting in the context of a movie, but aren't considering whether or not making all these characters work within the stories and universe they all set up individually to where they can all interact together wouldn't work. There's minimal to no consideration of properly adapting the first-party series first and foremost with their own standalone movies. The rest of the IPs most genuinely don't care about, like Ice Climbers or Duck Hunt, because that's going to become a goal or obstacle to some in and outside developing the project. The third-party characters like Sonic, but also Pac-Man, Cloud, Mega Man, Banjo-Kazooie, Minecraft, Steve, Sora, Persona 5 Joker, etc., to where you have to worry about also getting a third-party rights there, and acquiring the rights for a film is not the same for a video game, and they'd have to worry about adapting their characters and worlds well enough, whether they're cinematic universes or their game universes, depending on how it would go, trying to establish a coherent plot and story with enough motivations and writing across dozens upon dozens of characters to make for a story and crossover that narratively, cohesively works. Like, all of that's not happening. That, and like, do you think most people care about Nintendo wanting to adapt the characters of and making film adaptations for Ice Climber, Game & Watch, Kid Icarus, Wii Fit, Duck Hunt, The Mii's to make a Smash movie? No, they don't. If Nintendo ever rebooted Ice Climber into a new game, let alone a film, that would be cool, but it's the same obstacle a lot of the smaller franchises face in Smash already, on a larger, more detrimental scale. They'd have to adapt those series too, as well as most general audiences 100%, not really gonna caring about them compared to Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Metroid, and the other larger first parties, as much as I wish more people would care about Kid Icarus and ARMS. And if they didn't adapt them, most people would literally not care, nor would we know if they would add or subtract from a Smash movie. That's why I'm in the camp where if Nintendo ported Ultimate to the next system, if they ported Smash and added no new characters, stages, music, almost nothing about it was new. I would take it if it meant we got a new Subspace Emissary sequel, follow-up with the roster Ultimate has, because that is more realistic than an actual Smash movie, and I would take that over a Smash movie because I do feel a Smash movie in theaters would not work that well. Subspace Emissary took the amount of time and development as a brand new game all on its own, and that's the closest we're ever gonna get to a Smash or Nintendo cinematic experience. That if the next Smash game was literally Ultimate 2.0 with a brand new Subspace campaign, with all those cutscenes and interactions intact and capitalized with all the new characters Ultimate introduced, I'd still be mad hype because it's more than double the amount of characters Brawl got for that mode. That's basically our Smash cinematic experience, and that's the most they really have to do in that regard. The only way you could ever argue a Smash movie ever working, if Nintendo ever wanted to do a shared cinematic universe at all, because we don't know if that's on Nintendo's radar or not, is if they strictly stuck with the original 8 roster from 64. Not Ness or Captain Falcon either. I'm talking strictly Mario, DK, Fox, Kirby, Yoshi, Samus, Pikachu, and Link. That's the only way I feel like you could make a Smash movie work. Mario, DK, and Yoshi are already a shared universe. Star Fox, Metroid, and Kirby all take place deep in outer space to where you can link them up with Mario if you wanted to. Pokemon establishes alternate dimensions and multiverses with Ultra Space and Hoopa's entire concept in Sun and Moon. So between that and Pipes and Mario, even with Zelda's specific focus on different timelines taking place, that's the only way you could argue a Smash or Nintendo's shared universe in any capacity. But once again, they would still have to establish standalone content for Kirby, for Metroid, Zelda, etc. And that's still going to take a decade or two to even do. Pokemon also being a part of that equation, because Detective Pikachu even hardly scratches much of what Pokemon or Pikachu himself is, even when the main character is Pikachu. DP on its own is a self-contained story within the Pokemon universe. Again, all of this stuff is stuff that needs to be planned out years in advance before it goes off with any success whatsoever, and they still have to establish the other franchises first. And I'm gonna be that guy. It's true. Nintendo does not have to make everything a shared universe. Everything does not have to be a shared universe. Mario with Nintendo is the only franchise to where that's really the only franchise you have to worry about making a shared universe at all. Donkey Kong, Wario, and Yoshi, those are all franchises of their own that have their own line of games and characters and stories and such that share a universe with Mario already in his own games. That it's like what Shrek is to DreamWorks. All the sequels, spin-off series and movies and such, Puss in Boots. Like, Mario's big enough to where you can make a shared universe within Mario with those brands. But even with that and Nintendo's other brands getting standalone films and content, all they should really care about is just making good standalone movies of their franchises, because that is a really good goal and benchmarker we should all be caring about first and foremost, and having good standalone movies that tell good stories is incredible already. I don't need a Smash universe or movie where Nintendo can make all of their other brands work as movies or TV shows. And after the Mario movie, Smash is already a stupid fun series that makes me plenty happy and invested already, even beyond the amazing character roster. I just want more of Nintendo doing what they did with the Mario movie to Mario and their other franchises instead. I want them to make a good Zelda movie, whether live action or animated. Same exact case for Metroid. A good Metroid movie is a given. I want Kirby and Star Fox to get their own movies. I want Donkey Kong Country to get either a movie or spin-off series. I want Luigi's Mansion to get the same. I want Kid Icarus and Xenoblade to get an anime series. ARMS could work insanely well as either a cartoon or animated standalone movie, and I would eat that up incredibly hard. Like, I just want these franchises and series Nintendo has to adapt into effective standalone movies and animated series like the Mario movie did. You do not need to combine all of them into a shared canon. You can let these franchises flourish and prosper all on their own without Smash needing to give them that boost or press for people to care. If they pull off a Smash movie, I could very well sing a different tune. It's at least going to be something Nintendo will consider, but not only is that going to require significantly more hoops and obstacles for Nintendo and any other movie studios to deal with, more than what Smash developers had to deal with already, they're not entertaining that idea for at least 2 more decades. It's going to take a long ass time to even plan and conceptualize at all, and I don't think enough people are considering both how much time that would take as well as the dozens of factors, problems, and things these companies and studios have to consider to make a Smash or Nintendo shared universe work, that the bulk of it is a fun what-if scenario, but is wildly unrealistic and next to impossible to pull off. Far more impossible than any of the most requested first and third party characters that got into Smash, like Sora, Sephiroth, Cloud, K. Rool, or Ridley and such, that many wanted, but another many preached how impossible they were. That's basically it. If you want a Mario movie review that's literally as long as the Mario movie, you can check out mine. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I got more Mario content coming. I want to make more Smash-esque content down the line. And stay super.
Yo, hey, 妹妹，嘿，我来呀！呜呼，够狠！哈哈哈！